What's up, dogs? And welcome everyone to SWAT Deeds episode 4. And this time we are dancing in the Terry Pratchett's Discworld.
There's a place you're always welcome, that's as nice as it can be. Everyone can get in, 'cause it's absolutely free.
This is going to be a very unique episode because we're going to talk about books, which I haven't done in this channel at all. That's because, books are kind of complicated and Discworld has like 46 books or something like that. But it is something very special to me. And this episode is going to drop on the 28th, which is Terry Pratchett's birthday. He was born on April 28th. Forgot the year, but it was a long time ago. And his work is very special to me, so I wanted to dedicate an episode to it. And I found another fellow fan who is also a Discworld, Discworld wizard, I'm going to call him, because wizards are important people in Discworld, so I'm going to call him as a Discworld wizard. You already know him, actually. He was here as an X-Men, now he's here as a wizard. So, Diz!
Hello. Hello, everybody. I don't know about a wizard, but yeah, I enjoy Discworld. I enjoy it quite a bit.
I as well. And the reason why I say wizard is that, I think Terry Pratchett refers to himself as a wizard as well. Yeah, he likes, because, he also makes the point in his books is that death only comes for very important people. Other people just die and he doesn't make a first appearance, unless if you're a wizard or a witch or probably a king. So it's kind of like that. So I'm gonna make you an honorary visit in this episode.
Okay, so I got that to look forward to. Death showing up at my door. That'll be good.
Who are you?
I'm Callista Flockhart. Who the hell do you think I am? I'm deaf.
So this, first of
Yes.
all, I'm gonna start off with the question that how did you get introduced to Discworld, and how did it hook you in? How did it make you a fan?
That's a very good question. I honestly do not remember how I was first introduced to Mr. Pratchett's work. I worked in a bookstore for a long time, and it might have been that I saw it there. There are some books that have really interesting covers, and they draw you in. I can think of there's some books by Julian May. Of course, the old Tolkien books that Tolkien drew the covers on. Those are really, really draw you in.
Oh,
and Pratchett's books. There's some very, very early editions where he did the covers and a lot of the interior art. So I don't remember how I got introduced to it, but I know that I read them all very quickly and in order as much as I could. I don't think I've read all of them at this point. I was on maybe the 40th. I think you said there were like 47 books or something. There's a lot of books.
Too many.
So I got maybe to about book 40, and then I went through a divorce, and my ex-wife took all my books.
Do you remember this Eddie Murphy joke where he makes about she takes half your shit?
Half! I take half his shit.
And she took half your books. No, she took all of your books.
She took all my good books. Yeah. She took all my good books.
For a nerd, that's gotta hurt.
Yeah, that was one day I woke up and I realized, I'd like to go back and reread Small Gods, and it's gone. So, it's just gone. So
Gone! It's all gone.
So I haven't read any Pratchett in a while. I've started rereading it. There's a website called Humble Bundle where they make bundles of related media available for very low prices, and the part of the proceeds go to charity. So I picked up, I think it was like 35 of the Discworld books are part of that bundle. And of course you have to read them on your iPad or your Kindle or whatever. And now books are so expensive. If you can find the bundle, the Humble Bundle, the discounted version is over, but they probably still have all the books for a very low price. So I highly recommend looking that up if you're new to the world of Discworld and you're interested in it. There are also reading lists out there that you can find that will show you, that'll group the books. There's so many characters in this series, and so many different themes, and so many different locations, like the unseen university where wizards get their credentials, and the city of Ankh-Morpork where all the crime and gritty stuff happens, and the counterweight continent, which we'll probably talk about later. But there are reading guides that will group all these books by character or by location, and you can just pick one and start, because all the characters get covered eventually. You can kind of hop around in these books, which is another nice thing.
So yours would be the cover is what actually drew you.
The cover, I think that, and maybe there might have been like a cartoon. I know some of his works have been turned into cartoons, like The Three Witches has been turned into a very poorly animated cartoon, but it's still not bad. The Hogfather, which is excellent, is a live action piece. The Hogfather is the Discworld equivalent of Santa Claus, and it's a story about how an assassin, Mr. Tiatame, or Mr. Tea Time, has been hired to kill the Hogfather, who is a mythical creature. But in Discworld, that's perfectly fine, because mythical creatures are real on Discworld. Magic is real, so the Tooth Fairy is involved. Just all kinds of crazy stuff that Pratchett weaves together just so beautifully. And of course, I know we'll talk about this guy later, but we've already mentioned him. Death is a huge character in the Discworld mythos, and probably, I know you're probably going to ask me who my favorite character is. He's one of them. He's definitely a very, very good character.
I am with you on, because like I was also got introduced to Discworld, I think like maybe 2 years ago or maybe last year. I'm not really sure. I saw a clip on YouTube of one of the underrated, I can't really say, is that there was an animated show about his book Soul Music, and there was a clip of Death going to meet a Hindu-like sage, and he's kind of the all-knowing Hindu kind of guy, and he goes that the overall minus for this is that Death's trying to forget everything because he remembers everything, so he wants to forget everything. And he goes to this guy, and this guy's like, "Oh, are you seeking the truth of the universe, the truth of the infinite?" And that's like, "Okay, maybe I'll start with that. Then tell me." And then he gives that very Asian representation of like how we view life, and our truth is like, let go of material pleasures and detach yourself from everything, so you can know the infinite.
The secret of existence is to disdain earthly ties, shun the illusion of material worth, and seek oneness with the infinite.
And Death is like, yeah, I've seen the infinite. It's not that great, actually.
Oh, I've seen the infinite. It's nothing special.
Don't be daft. You can't see the infinite. It's infinite.
I have.
All right, then. What did it look like?
It's blue.
It's black.
It's blue.
It's black.
From the outside, it's blue. Believe me.
Instantly, that clip just like, I have to see this, because like the writing is so good. I'm so much laughing at this. I have to see this. And I started watching the animated show. I would say I can't really say that's a great show. I think mainly because what I discovered is that Discworld is a very hard thing to adapt to live action.
Yes.
I say this because from other fantasy things, it's like the main focus of Discworld is conversations. Like characters interacting with characters and having deep, very philosophical conversations. And I'm not really sure how exciting that is on screen. I think it would be exciting for me, but where that animated show lost me is that when they try to do the wacky things, think about reading a wacky thing in a book, you can imagine it and it makes you laugh because the idea itself is so absurd. But when you put it on screen, it's so absurd, but it's also not so good. So it can lose you. And that's why that show was not that really. But it did inspire me to look up the books. And like you, I followed a reading list. And the first book that I landed on was Small God. That was my introduction to it. And here's the most important thing that you really like. I listened to the Small Gods on YouTube. And there's the thing, people. If you can't really buy books or even get the Kindle editions, in YouTube, they have audiobooks. Just in YouTube. Just go and listen to them. And Small God was narrated by Terry Pratchett's friend, actually, who is the actor from Blackadder who played Baldric.
My name is Baldric. Then I shall call you Baldric.
Do you remember that?
Tony Robinson. Tony Robinson.
Yes. He's the guy who goes, I have a cunning plan.
Cunning plan.
Don't worry, Mr. B. I have a cunning plan to solve the problem.
So he narrated the whole book. I listened to it, loved it so much. The next on the list was other books, but then I instantly went to Maud because, like you, Death, or unlike you, you say he's one of your favorite characters. He is my favorite character. Yeah. I love Discworld because of the character Death.
Small Gods, such an amazingly good book, and it is completely it's completely standalone. It's not involved with any of the other arcs or locations or anything else. The basic premise of the book is the basic premise of gods in Discworld. Okay, so Discworld, we keep saying Discworld, but let's describe what Discworld actually is. Discworld is based on the premise that in an infinite universe, everything that can happen should happen eventually. And somewhere in this infinite universe is a world that is a disk. It is flat, and it goes through space on the back of 4 elephants who have names, and they stand on the back of a turtle called the Great Atun. I believe that's how you pronounce it. And Atun is swimming through space towards some destination. We do not know where or what or any of that stuff.
Some say she is looking for another turtle
another turtle, which would be the Big Bang. That's right.
Oh yeah, you're looking fine. Coming at you, baby.
Would be some very bad news for the denizens of Discworld. But at the center of the disc is a spire, which I don't remember the name of the mountain, but it's where all the gods live. It's sort of like Olympus. And the gods watch everything that's going on Discworld. In the first book, there's a chess match amongst the gods where they try to dictate the fates of the protagonist, Two-Flower, who is the first tourist on Discworld. And the wizard Rincewind, who is the worst wizard in the multiverse. And he only knows, I think, 2 spells, and one of them was put there by a dark evil god when he accidentally opened a book he wasn't supposed to at university. And the spell lodged itself in his mind. It escaped from the book. And so now if he ever utters the spell, the universe will probably end. So he has to kind of keep a lid on that. So anyway, Small Gods. Gods in Discworld get their power, much like they do here in the real world, based on the number and fervency of the believers that they have. Okay? So if a god has a lot of believers, he has a lot of power. In Discworld, that power is real, unlike here in our world where it's all bullshit and made up. So,
I would think somewhat it has real life power consequences, I would say. I think he's doing
yes, it can have consequences.
I would say he's parodying something of it.
Yes, he was. He was talking about, God, I'm not worried about Zeus's followers coming to get me. I'm not worried about Zoroastrians coming to kick my ass if I say, hey, Zoroaster, he's not real. Zeus, what a pussy. No. I'm not worried about those guys. But, Jesus, he's got people out back waiting for me to back up.
No more Mr. Nice Jesus.
So anyway, in Discworld, if a god loses followers, if people stop believing, he gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And one day, the great god Ohm, O-H-M, I believe that's how it's spelled, wakes up and he's a turtle.
Yep.
Because all of his followers have sort of abandoned him. There's still a church. It's like the biggest church on Discworld, but nobody actually believes. Even the most fervent of his believers is basically just a con man. So that's what that book is about. And it's just so good. It's so good. It's so well written. If you're a person of faith, if you're not a person of faith like myself, I highly recommend that book for anyone, because it really takes a look at belief and faith and the power of those things and how they can help us.
Religion as an institution as a whole.
Yes.
My favorite part in that book is that this might be a funny one, is where in their version of the Greek city, where there's philosophers who are atheists, and they say, we don't believe in God. And then when they say that, suddenly everything darkens and lightning's about to strike. Oh, we say all gods are not true except for the thunder god. And then the clouds just fade away. And then they go, and then suddenly the earth starts to shake, like, yes, I'm sorry. All gods are not true except for the thunder god and the earth god. And then the earth stops. That was such a funny line, and how kind of a critique at academics as well sometimes, I think. And it's just amazing. I think that part of the book is the one that made me laugh so much.
It's an amazingly good book. I'm contemplating jumping ahead to that after I finish the current book that I'm on. But again, I'm one of these comic book nerds that likes to read things in order.
What's your current book?
I'm working on The Light Fantastic, which is the second book in the series. I've read, like I say, I've read a bunch of them before, and I consume other types of the media. Like we watch The Hogfather every year instead of Christmas stuff.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I actually bought it off Amazon. It's available on Amazon.
The other thing I want to ask you is that we touched upon this a little bit. Favorite characters. I'll just go top of my head and say I like other characters. So far in this, I've not actually read 30 of them books. I've only read Small God, Mort, Reaperman, and I'm about to read The Thief of Time, I think. That's the title of it. I have that downloaded, and I'm going to read that. But again, the one reason it attracted me to Discworld is Death, the character Death. I am obsessed with the Grim Reaper. I don't know why.
That's not healthy.
From all the interpretation of Grim Reaper they have done, I think Discworld has the best personification of death. And he did a good job so much, is that I've read this or heard this somewhere, is that people who are chronically ill actually wrote to Terry Pratchett, or maybe admitted to the media or something like that, is that like they might die soon, and they really wish that Death is the character that Terry Pratchett wrote. They really wish that that's the character they want to meet. And that's because like he has, most of the time, Death is kind of an intimidating figure. He's the end of all things, the scary guy. He is kind of sort of in this one, but he's also very kind in this one. And why wouldn't Death be kind? That's a good question to ask. Like, why Death is the mean guy? That could be the most kindest person you can think of. And it kind of makes sense, because the character he draws upon, and I even like it in the Reaperman, where it's like he develops a personality, and the people who run the universe, they're like, oh, no, he's developed too much of a personality. We need to fire him.
For being too much of a personality and having doubts about his job, Death, with a capital D, has just been fired. But they're letting him keep the horse.
So, in the fact that people don't really like the personality, the kind Death.
Death has become a personality.
There have been irregularities. Where you get personalities, you get irregularities. It's a well-known fact.
But that's what we get from Terry Pratchett's interpretation. And he's my favorite character, and he has the best quotes in the books I've read so far.
I've never been very sure about what is right. I am not sure there is such a thing as right or wrong. Just places to stand. And that's the most of the quotes that pop up on the internet about death and stuff like that. I think it comes from them. So, who is your favorite character? And who maybe you have multiple?
My favorite character, I think, is Granny Weatherwax. She's one of the three witches. She is, she's tall, she's thin, she's ancient, and she doesn't take any crap from anybody. She practices she doesn't do a lot of magic. She does what she calls headology, which is just reverse psychology or psychology on people. And she constantly is, she's sort of a play in Discworld. Every village has a witch, that sort of takes care of the village and wards off bad stuff and that stuff. And Granny Weatherwax is like one of the oldest and most powerful ones. And she also has another witch, Nanny Og, who's sort of the opposite of Granny Weatherwax. She's very nonsensical. She's short. She's plump. She's very randy, as they say in the UK. She's had a lot of husbands who've all not outlived her yet.
Got around.
And she gets around. And she and Granny Weatherwax are like these polar opposites that are constantly finding ways to overcome these weird situations that they have to face in Discworld. So I think Granny Weatherwax is probably one of my favorite characters. Another character that, of course, I love Death. He is a great character. One of the best lines I think I've ever. You're absolutely right. Death gets all the best lines, and that does not stop in the books that you haven't read. In the Hogfather, the Hogfather has disappeared, and so Hogswatch Eve, which is like Christmas Eve, is coming up, and who will give the children their presents? Who will guide the hogs on the magical sleigh to go around Discworld and give the children their presents? So Death steps in, and he dresses up as the Hogfather, and he goes to the equivalent of a department store, and he's sitting there with kids on his lap, and he's giving them gifts and stuff. Kids are asking Death for gifts, and he gives this one girl a sword, and the girl's parent says, "You can't give that. It's a sword." He goes, "I know. It's very educational." Educational? What if she cuts herself? And he said that would be a very important lesson to learn. So yeah, Death is a great character. Susan, I don't know if you've met Susan yet, but Susan is Death's granddaughter.
Oh yes.
In the sense that Mort, the character that you've been talking about, Mort was Death's apprentice, who was a human, and he sort of being around Death all the time became Death's son. And so when Mort had a child, that child got some magic imbued in them through Mort and Death, and that was Susan, and became Death's granddaughter, and she plays a very big role in the Hogfather book as well. There's Cut Me Own Throat Dibbler, who is a vendor on the streets of Ankh-Morpork, and he constantly complains that these prices he's cutting his own throat, so that's why he calls himself Cutting Me Own Throat Dibbler. There's Captain Carrot, who is a gigantic 7-foot tall red-headed man who was raised by dwarves and considers himself to be a dwarf.
Yeah.
He's a fantastic character. He's just I think he's supposed to be, he's a misplaced king. And so it's hinted at through a bunch of books that he's the actual king of some kingdom or other. But he never wants to do that. He just wants to be a guardsman. He just wants to help people. There's Constable Nobby Nobbs, who's part of the Night Watch. There's Dorfel the Golem, there's a whole book about golems and how golems are part of this world and they're trying to get their own rights. It's just, I think that one's called Feet of Clay. And of course, Rincewind, the wizard, he's got wizard on his hat with 2 Z's. And then there's the luggage. The luggage is like, in the very first book, the luggage is introduced. There's a character called Two Flower, who I said is the first tourist on Discworld, and he comes from the Discworld equivalent of Japan, I guess. And he's got this magical luggage, which is made of sapient pear wood, and he puts all this stuff in it, but it's got feet, and whenever he moves, it rises up on hundreds of little feet and just follows him. And nothing can separate him from his luggage. And so no matter where he is, the luggage finds him. And if you mess with the luggage will eat you. And then there's Rob Anybody, who is a tiny little, he's one of the wee free men, which I don't know. They're like tiny, I don't know what they're supposed to be in our mythology. I don't remember. They're like gnomes, I guess.
Gnomes, yeah.
Yeah, like they maybe like the Fae. They're tiny, and this guy's name is Rob Anybody, so he will literally rob anybody. They're just a bunch of thieves. And those are introduced. There are a bunch of books in Discworld that are children's books. They're legitimate children's books. Rob Anybody is introduced in a book, in a series. I don't remember the name of the first book, but it's a series. It's a young witch named Tiffany Aching. So she's the protagonist of these books, and she learns that she's going to be a witch, and she's going to be a very powerful witch, and she really doesn't want to do that, but there are other forces on the disc that really either want to see her dead or want to see her, come into her powers. And she hooks up with the Wee Free Men. I think that's the name of the book, the Wee Free Men. But she hooks up with the Wee Free Men, and they protect her, and she tries to tame Rob Anybody so that he's not such a little dick all the time.
I think you just about named like 5 or 10 characters probably.
Yes, and they're all favorites. They're all favorites. I would watch anything, any media with any of them. Hollywood is really missing a trick by not adapting this stuff and doing it well. They showed it can be done with The Hogfather, and that wasn't a Hollywood production, but The Hogfather shows it can be done.
So hard to name favorite characters because like there's a lot of characters, and the main thing is like you fell in love with most of them. I can pick my favorites mainly because like I have not read as much as books as you right now. I'm only focused on Death so far. But I would say one other character, and Maud is also a very good character, but the other character that was so much fun to me is that the wizard Windle Toons, I think, from Reaperman. It's the wizard that Death forgot to come and kill him because Death got fired at that time.
Oh, yeah. I vaguely remember that character.
Windle Poons is that so basically in the Reaperman is that Death gets fired because he has developed too much of a personality, and and he goes off and works in a farm. Usually when wizards die, Death goes personally to actually collect them. And Windle Poons was about to go, and they usually have a tag party or something like that when a wizard's about to die, and the university have the party, but Death doesn't come. So Windle Poons. He's technically, I mean, he's kind of like a zombie, kind of. He's not really a zombie, but he's kind of like a zombie. And the whole thing is like everyone's trying to get rid of him now. And he also wants to get rid of himself. That's the funny part of the book is like, oh, I'm so sorry that I'm such a bother to you all people.
I never thought being dead would be so much trouble.
I remember him now, yeah.
The colleagues are trying to get rid of him, and he's trying ways to die as well, even though he technically is dead. He's just not been collected yet. And there was a point where he's like buried in the ground, where he gets so much pissed off at Death. It's like, I just want to die. Why don't you come and take me? And just gets up as a man on a mission to find Death.
He resolved to find out what was going on. And then, if Death wasn't going to come to him, he'd go to Death. He had his rights, after all. Yeah. He'd lead the biggest missing person hunt of all time.
I think his whole character arc, that also there's this line where he's like, and when he was alive, he didn't really do anything, just stuck around in his office and did work. And now that he's dead, like he's going off on adventures and journeys. He thought that was a weird thing. But
he knew from experience that the living never found out half of what was really happening because they were too busy being the living. The onlooker sees most of the game, he told himself. It was the living who ignored the strange and wonderful because life was too full of the boring and mundane.
I don't know why because usually, like in books and stories, we have characters that want to live. He's one of the characters who wants to die. He's kind of like a Looney Tunes version in the Discworld, which I loved so much because, like, he's in a very big predicament. He's half zombie, half weird thing, and he runs into these other undead characters. Like, I think the Watch characters maybe that he ran into a Dracula couple, which again very funny. And then there's the Boogeyman. He's also very funny. You never get to see him because like he always hides in the shadows. So whenever you open a room, if there's a shadow, he'll go inside it and he'll talk from there. And there's this weird romance. There's a were-dog, and the thing is like he becomes like a werewolf guy in the full moon, but other times he's a dog. And there's a lady called Ludmilla who I think in the full moon becomes a werewolf or becomes a wolf, but normal time she's a human. And they fall in love together, again, a weird couple, which again is very funny in that thing. It's like, so I would say after Death, Windle Poons has to be my favorite character. But the reason why I could name characters because like I haven't read as much as books as this right now, so that's why it's easier for me.
That's all right. There is another character that's very good that I just remember when you mentioned dogs. I believe the character's name is Gaspode. Gaspode with an accent over the E, and he's a dog an actual dog in Ankh-Morpork who has been astray around the unseen university for years, and so the magic has seeped out, and now he's super intelligent. So that's another interesting little side character. There's a camel that is the Discworld's greatest mathematician. There's a whole there's several chapters on him. I don't remember what book it's from. I don't remember the camel's name. If you're looking for weird characters and just weird, what is the logical or illogical progression of what would actually happen in a world where magic is real, this is definitely the series for you.
That going to bring me to the weirdness and everything is because we have to talk about the man, the myth, the legend, Sir Terry Pratchett, the man who created Discworld. So what do you think of him as a person, a writer, and what do you think makes him unique as well as a writer, as a person?
Yeah, he wrote stuff that was funny, that was effortlessly funny. There was never, sometimes a lot of humorous writing you can see the punchline coming a mile off. A lot of the stuff that he wrote actually kind of feels like improv, where the funny sort of falls out under the weight of the weird situation that is built up. Whenever I teach an improv class, I say, don't try to be funny to the students. If you just follow the rules of yes and of respecting the reality that you're building, then the funny will happen eventually. And that's kind of what he's doing in his books. He's starting with this base reality of a disc-shaped world on the back of elephants and a turtle, where gods are real and magic is real. And he says, well, what if this happens? And what happens after that? And what happens after that? And what does this character want? What does that character want? And it all just happens to end up being funny. But it also happens to be poignant. It also happens to be moving. It also happens to be personal in a lot of times. The best books, you find something in common. You find something to latch onto with these different characters, and he hits that out of the park a lot more often than he does not. And that's one of the reasons that I did not like Good Omens.
Yeah.
Because it all just felt like, oh, well, it's like he's having to listen to Neil Gaiman's bits and pieces of bullshit as well. And Pratchett was an infinitely better writer than Neil Gaiman. Send your hate to whatever he puts down in the bottom.
Come at me, bro.
I think I'm very sorry. I was very sad when I heard, he made an announcement a couple years before he died that he had Parkinson's.
Hi, this is Video Editing Cap. Just wanted to make a quick disclaimer that we were mistaken. Terry Pratchett did not have Parkinson's. He had a rare form of Alzheimer's, which we do elaborate a bit more later in the video, but I wanted to correct it here as well, that Terry Pratchett had Alzheimer's and he did pass away because of it. I apologize for the mistake, and now back to the video.
He started planning for his own death. He started winding up his works. He handled that with a great deal of dignity and grace, and I think that really showed you a big part of who he was. The fact that he was so obsessed with death. I don't think there's any getting around the fact that he was very obsessed with death, the way he wrote death. He wrote death the way Chris Claremont writes women, Oh, that must be what death is really like. That must be what women are really like. Even though, much like Chris Claremont, he wasn't one, he wasn't death. But I think he wrote an aspirational death, a death that we shouldn't be afraid of. And one thing that I think really speaks to who he was the way he wrote about the wealth disparity on Discworld and in our world by extension. He's got it's called the Pratchett Poverty something or other. I don't remember exactly what it's called, but he wrote a very telling piece about it's very expensive to be poor. Okay, you might think that being poor, I don't have to buy this, I don't have to buy that. Well, you still got to buy the basics, right? So if you're poor, and he put this in the context of a policeman, I think, on Discworld. If you're poor and you need shoes, well, you're going to buy the cheapest shoes that you can, and those shoes are going to wear out really quickly. So you're going to have to buy more shoes. And not only that, but those bad shoes are going to affect your health. They're going to affect your feet. They're going to affect your posture. They're going to affect your lung capacity, for God's sake. All these things simply from being poor and not being able to afford better shoes. Now, if you're a rich man, you get some nice shoes. They'll last you 5-6 years. They treat your feet nicely. Your posture is good. Your health is, you're not having these deleterious side effects from that pair of shoes that you were forced to buy because you couldn't afford anything better. So by all accounts, other than what he wrote, Pratchett was a wonderful human being, and the world is a worse place for his passing.
For me, I think I'm gonna get a little bit philosophical here, because I think the reason why, I'm not a Stoic people. I like things in Stoicism, but I'm kind of a downer and a doomer. I like existentialism a lot.
You're a very serious person, aren't you?
Well, so many people in the world, deprived and unhappy. Doesn't seem like it would be fair to be cheerful.
I just love that stuff. And one of the versions of existentialism that I really like is absurdism, one brought by Albert Camus. And I think there are plenty of other absurdist work out there I think could be better. But for me, when it comes to fantasy and stuff like that, Discworld is the best absurdist books that you can think of. And it is so good. And it's so absurdism is not just about being wacky as well. It's kind of weirdly relatable. The absurd situations you find yourself in. And like you said, like the characters just find themselves in this absurd situation, and the lines just come in. It's relatable, and it's also kind of weird and funny. It's the perfect mix. And when you think about real life, it's kind of absurd as well in most cases.
Oh, yeah.
That's why most of the answers from the Discworld characters seem so relatable to you. I love the fact that in Mort, in the Discworld universe, like, if you die and you go to the place that you believe in, that's basically what happens to you. And even if you're a good person, if you think you're going to hell, you are going to hell. It's because you believed in it. And Mort actually talks about that to Death. It's like, that just doesn't seem fair. And Death is like, who talked about fairness? Like, yeah, it doesn't seem justice. No. There is no justice. There's only me.
Yeah, that's another great quote. I think it's from the Hogfather, or it might be from the book. They might have lifted it from Mort for the Hogfather, but Death is talking to Susan, and she says, "That's not fair. That's not that. Where's the justice?" And he said, if you take the universe and Death says, if you take the universe and you grind it down to its last atom, and you put those in a mill and you grind that down to the quarks and the electrons and the gluons and the fundamental nuclear forces, you will find not one jot or tittle of justice or fairness.
Yeah.
None. That's some deep shit.
That's deep.
That's some very deep shit.
He gets absurdist. I think Albert Camus was alive, he would have loved this world. And the other thing about Terry Pratchett, I think, is what's unique about that person, is that because you said like he had Parkinson's or Alzheimer's, I'm not really sure.
But you've recently become known beyond the fans of your books because you've gone public to discuss the fact that you have a rare form of Alzheimer's disease.
PCA, which is posterior cortical atrophy, that means that my problems are more or less with, if you put a glass down on that table, I'd have to look, okay, table, glass. In other words, I wouldn't just pick it up. It's depth vision and all kinds of weird things, often to do with your sight. Nothing wrong with the sight, but the parts of the brain dealing with the sight have some difficulty.
So he lived in the UK, and unlike Switzerland, in the UK you can't really choose your own, assisted death. That thing doesn't exist in the UK, which you can do in Switzerland. And he pioneered that UK government changed their laws, and that assisted death becomes a possibility, because he would very much like to self-delete.
And you've become an advocate for the right to assisted death.
Mm-hmm. Again, this is going to get a little bit more dark here, because I think that's a very important conversation people need to have. I think a lot of governments don't have that conversation, but that's the conversation people need to have. Because death it's happening to all of us. It doesn't matter if you're young or old, it's going to happen to you. And you better be best prepared for all scenarios. And one of the most scary scenarios is that like, you don't become in charge of your own anatomy and you just a living husk. A lot of people with mental illness just become living husks.
Why, if you're old and lame and you can't be cured and the disease is getting worse every day, are you expected to grin and bear it just because someone would like to care for you? It's not up to them, it's up to you.
He made a lot of speeches as well. There's also a documentary. I saw this speech, which was delivered by, again, the actor who played Baldrick, about like why the UK government needs to do assisted death.
So at his own request, he has what he describes as a stunt Pratchett, who's going to read the speech on his behalf. And he suggested his great friend and colleague, the actor Tony Robinson, forever Baldrick to you and me, who's made his own compelling documentary on the subject of dementia and is an ambassador for the Alzheimer's Society. So it's going to be Tony Robinson who reads the body of the speech.
He doesn't like to call it as assisted, the word that I can't really say on YouTube, but like he doesn't like that phrasing because he doesn't think that's what he's trying to do. He's basically like to call that assisted death. It's because like he is kind of choosing in a clear mind of mind, not really depressed or anything about it. I think that point he argued was a very important conversation that a lot of people need to have, a lot of governments needs to have. And I like the fact that he actually did that as a person.
As I've said, I would like to die peacefully with Thomas Tallis on my iPod before the disease takes me over. And I hope that will not be for quite some time to come, because if I knew that I could die at any time I wanted, then suddenly every day would be as precious as £1 million. If I knew that I could die, I would live. My life, my death, my choice.
You also recommended Discworld as an unproblematic book to the masses. I would say, yeah, but I would say Terry Pratchett is a very political guy with like very strong opinion.
Yes.
But he's kind to most people. He actually values everyone's opinion. That's why I like his take on religion as well. He never really bashes God. He points out the obvious problem with religions and stuff like that. But he also kind of makes it even like Dad bargains with the gods to make Mort and his daughter get married because like he screwed up the world so much, but the gods are the ones who fixed it. And Dad says, they're not so bad.
The gods are just. They are also sentimentalists. I have never been able to master it myself.
I like the fact the stanza he took on like the power of beliefs and stuff like that. And also the unique question, I'm not really sure if Neil Gaiman was the one who started. I'm not really sure who started it. But like in Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman have this thing, like you said, your belief is what creates God.
What's a god? Can we even know they exist? People believe things, which means they're real. That means we know they exist. So what came first, gods or the people who believed in them?
And it's kind of a warning as well. You better be very careful about what you believe in. Because if it does come real, you need to be very sure that the things you believe in are very good things. And
there's a I don't know if you've heard, we've got a little political trouble here in America.
Aren't you always?
Aren't you always? Not when Nixon was around, buddy, let me tell you. And there's a joke over here. All these Trump supporters keep finding out that the guy that they voted for and they want to vote for again has done some, if they pay attention, if they really listen, they find out that he's done some pretty horrible things. And the joke over here is that, oh no, I voted for the leopards eating my face off party and now leopards are eating my face off. Who would have thought that would happen to me, a loyal member of the leopards eating my face off party? So yeah, I mean, these people here are willing this into existence, and it is going to, I mean, it's already biting them on the ass. They're just, their asses are so big, they don't realize that they're losing chunks of it just yet. But That's a different podcast.
But I think it's like Discworld in a weird way connects to the real world hypocrisies a lot. Life hypocrisies and also the systemic hypocrisies of the world very much. And that's what I like very much about Discworld. And I think that's why Terry, because here's the thing, this is what I felt. People make political opinions, they sometimes come up as rude. But when you read Terry Pratchett, it doesn't come off as rude. It comes off as, yeah.
I don't have that ability.
I
know my limitations.
Maybe you quote from Terry Pratchett. I don't know. But I think he's a very clever, I think that's his unique voice. Is that like, I would recommend Small Gods to the most religious person that I can think of. And I don't think they'll be offended. At least I think they won't be.
I think. No, it is. I'm positive. 65% sure. I could go up to 67.
Which gonna bring me to the next question. Is that like, you read so many books of Discworld. So what would your 3 favorites be? What's your 3 favorite books? This is the book you have to read over and over again. This is the books you can take when you're trapped in an island. So pick them carefully.
Well, Small Gods. That's tops. There's a book. It's not really a book. It's like a graphic novel. It's called The Last Hero. So Last Hero, it's about Conan the Barbarian trying to do one last quest. But Conan the Barbarian is like it's like if Conan never died, what would happen to him? Well, he would become an old man, all shriveled up. Picture your grandpa, take about 30 pounds off of him, put him in a long white beard with an eye patch and that, and a broadsword and a bikini. And that's basically Conan the Barbarian. So Small Gods, The Last Hero, and there's so many.
There are too many of the delicious options.
I think Feet of Clay, the one about the golems. I believe that's the name of the book. It's been so long since I read it, but that one really made an impression on me. With regard to is talk about freedom and rights and all that sort of thing. Golems are created creatures. Do they have rights? That sort of thing. So he touched on a lot of stuff there.
So that would be your books that you would take when you're trapped in an island. You have to read them over and over again.
Yeah, well, and so in this, I guess, the Discworld role-playing game. If you're familiar with GURPS, it uses GURPS as its engine. But it's illustrated by Paul Kidby, who does the illustrations for most of the Discworld books. So yeah, it's got info on all these characters and all the books at the time it was published, which was 2002. So this has got everything, and there's a follow up to this called Discworld 2 TOO, which has material from other books. And it's also, I don't know if you noticed this, it's co-written by Terry Pratchett.
And the other is Phil Masters?
Phil Masters, who is a game designer.
For me, because like I gave you 3 options, and I think I have to give myself 1 because I have only read like 4 or 3 books from Discworld yet, so I'm gonna have to be stingy on my pickings. I would pick Reaperman. Reaperman, okay. I would say, because I'm a doomer, guys.
Reaperman was a good book. I remember it. Yeah,
it has so much of the favorite lines from that book. Is there like one instance where I think this is, I'm paraphrasing here, is like, what else can the harvest expect from if not for the care of the Reaperman?
We know there is no good order except that which we create. There is no hope but us. There is no mercy but us. There is no justice. There is just us. All things that are ours. But we must care, for if we do not care, we do not exist. If we do not exist, then there is nothing but blind oblivion. And even oblivion must end some day. Lord, will you grant me just a little time, for the proper balance of things, to return what was given, for the sake of prisoners and the flight of birds? What can the harvest hope for, if not for the care of the Reaperman?
Nothing. That hit deep. That hit deep. And the other instance, this is where like death is technically living off a person, and he's about to die, I think, because like he gave his life force to a little girl, and he's also kind of becoming human as well as he's working on the farm. And there was one thing, and he's like hating the existence of like humans. Like, how do they live knowing that they're going to die? I think he put it as like sandwiched between two cliffs. I think that's how he put it.
The feeling of darkness dragging you forward. How could they live with it? And yet they did, and even seemed to find enjoyment in it, when surely the only sensible course would be to despair. Amazing. To feel you were a tiny living thing sandwiched between two cliffs of darkness. How could they stand to be alive? Obviously it was something you had to be born to.
That's the book where the Great Squeaker is born as well, like the Death of Rats.
Death of Rats.
Yeah. So, Reaperman is the book that I would take if I'm trapped in an island. I would read it over and over again. And if you like the Grim Reaper, I would say even better than Maud is Reaperman, because like you spend more time with death than you do with Maud, I think.
I would recommend that you read Hogfather next, because death is the main character in that.
Then now let's talk about Discworld recommendations. Then we can chat about a little bit about why like some of the live action stuff, some of the stuff that they made didn't actually quite live up to its expectation. But like, let's first give me your best recommendations. You can also recommend books as well, but like anything of Discworld, what do you like?
Well, if you play tabletop role playing games, definitely check this out. This is again, it's based on GURPS. This is a full role playing game. You don't need to buy anything else. I think it uses D6, but it's got pretty much everything in here that you would need. Where to go and why not to. That's a good one. There's Granny Weatherwax, and there's Danny Ogg. It's got information about all the. There they are again. They've gone to a play. I don't remember what book that's from, but I remember that scene. Let's see here. Oh, Sam Vines. That's another character. He's the head of the Night Watch in Ankh-Morpork. Oh yes, here we are. The Wizards of Unseen University.
Yeah,
the librarian. There's another great character.
Yeah,
this is the librarian. He was the librarian of the magical university, and he got hit by a spell that turned him into an orangutan. And it turned out that being an orangutan is a lot easier for working in a library than being a human. So he decided to stay that way.
So you have the role-playing game.
Yeah, so the role-playing game. The Last Hero, that's another one. I wish I could show you my copy of that, but it's a big book like this. So it's a graphic novel. And I would recommend that you watch The Hogfather, the live action. It's got Neil from The Young Ones. He plays a very, very confused wizard whose name I don't remember. It's got the Tooth Fairy. It's got Susan. It's got Death. It's got Bloody Stupid Johnson, who was the world's worst inventor in the history of Discworld. And he invented, they call him Bloody Stupid Johnson because everything that he invents just goes horribly, horribly wrong. He invented a shower in the Unseen University for the wizards to use, and it takes off more flesh than it does dirt. So yeah, those are my three recommendations for Discworld media that are not strictly the books.
My recommendation to you is first Going Postal, which is a TV movie, I think.
Okay.
I would say I didn't expect it to be good because it didn't have like the characters like Death and stuff like that. But this takes place in Ankh-Morpork. You might get the characters from The Watch a little bit, but you get that character was played by the guy who played Tywin Lannister, Charles Dance, I think.
Patrician of Ankh-Morpork. He runs everything from behind the scenes. Nobody messes with him. He'll have you killed if you piss him off.
And the problem is, don't let me detain you.
Telegram versus mail. That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
And they also touch upon the golems' rights, I think, a little bit, live action wise. which is very good when it comes to Discworld property, so I recommend that. Second is that The Amazing Maurice, which is an animated movie. It has great stars. It has Hugh Laurie, it has Emilia Clarke. There's two, and then the other British stars that you might recognize from The Voice. Which is basically, I think, like the dog characters, is where like rats become smart. And in this one, like there's also a cat. He's Maurice. He's voiced by Hugh Laurie. He also becomes smart. Death also makes an appearance as well, and also the rats that makes an appearance as well. It's so much better than the cartoon that they did before, the Soul Music one. This one is much more tighter. I think they finally figured out how to like involve Discworld things much tightly and do it really good. I would recommend that.
Join us! I have great plans!
You only have plans, while I have dreams.
And in books, for first Discworld readers, go with Small Gods. You can't go wrong with Small Gods. And when you read Small Gods, you basically get the idea what type of humor is going to get. I think the main attraction is, of course, the humor. And if you like that, you can just go off more to Reaperman if you're a doomer like me, or you can move up to other characters like golems and stuff like that. So those are my recommendations. I'm going to talk a little bit about Good Omens, because I really liked season 1's Good Omens. Season 2 is where I went, I don't know what's the point of the story anymore. It kind of gets weird. But I kind of liked season 1 Good Omens. But what is the reason why you don't like about Good Omens?
I enjoyed the TV shows. I'll back up and say that I did not enjoy the book. I think because it was not as much of a Terry Pratchett book as it was a Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman book. I could have done without Neil Gaiman. I'm not a huge. I don't understand what the big whoop is about Neil Gaiman. To be quite honest with you, his comic books are okay.
You might
the comics are okay.
There.
I don't give a. I don't care. I don't care. You're all wrong. You're all wrong. He's not that great. The thing that really worked about the TV adaptation, there's two things that worked about the TV adaptation. David Tennant and Michael Sheen. That's it. Their chemistry. I've watched those two guys just stare at each other on that little Zoom thing that they did staged. Their chemistry is so amazingly good. They could. I would if they started doing like some Discworld stuff with those two, that would be phenomenal. Make David Tennant Rincewind, and just adapt all the Rincewind books. And I don't know who Sheen could be. There's not really a lot of double acts in Discworld. It's typically all about one character. I don't know who Sheen would actually do it. He doesn't have the gravitas to be Death. And besides, you never see Death anyway, so it's always just going to be some puppet in a guy's voice.
I think if they do Small Gods, I think he could be Brother, and David Tennant could be the Turtle.
He could be Ohm. Oh, yeah, okay. That's perfect. That's some perfect fan casting.
That would be lovely. And also, I think for writers, from what I've seen, is that the people who wrote season 4 of Blackadder, I think they could do great with adapting Discworld humor. I think they would be very good with it.
There's another media recommendation that I completely forgot. This is called Troll Bridge. It's on YouTube. It's a 30-minute short film, and it's about Conan the Barbarian. It's like a fan film that got made. They had a Kickstarter and all that stuff. I think Pratchett signed off on it before he died. It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
It's good. It's good. It's good.
This is the grandiose question. This is the grandiose question.
Okay.
If the Discworld logic is true, and when you die, you basically go to whatever you believe in, what sort of thing you like to go to? Like
the Marvel Universe, the
Really?
616. Yeah,
Really?
That's all I believe in. You talk about myths and mythology. Comic books are my mythology. That's it.
True, but that world is kind of harsh.
It is kind of harsh, but if I can get some powers and get a book of my own, I will never die.
So who would you like to go as? Like, which character would you like to go as if you had the pick of it?
Oh, well, Spider-Man. I mean, he has a tough one.
You're gonna get hurt a lot, then.
Well, you know, a slightly smarter Spider-Man. Because I'm making all the same moves that he makes here in this world, and I just keep getting screwed over. So what's the point? What's the difference? Except I'm going to live forever. I've got a couple different books.
I would go to the combination world of like the Looney Tunes, Disney, and most of the cartoon shows that I grew up in. I would like to go to the multiverse of TV shows, cartoons that I grew up in. And I would sometimes visit superhero universes, but I won't stay there. Most of the time, I'm going to hang around with the Looney Tunes and the Disney characters. I don't.
So you're gonna be in Captain Carrot's world.
That's my dream. That's my dream.
Okay. No, you get crossovers with Justice League every now and again. That's cool.
I'm Bat Rabbit. Oh, well, don't expect a tip. I didn't ask to be saved.
Cartoon world would be a good afterlife. Yes. I can't imagine any afterlife. But when I was a wee lad, my father said, "You know, son, this is hell. This is it here. This is it. All that other stuff is bullshit. This is. It doesn't get any worse than this, but it doesn't get any better than this. So enjoy it."
Wow, that's a line. You should write that down. It should be a good line to end up on any book. It doesn't get any better than this. It doesn't get any worse than this either.
Yeah, I should make it part of my new religion, Dislam.
Dislam. So, Diz, thank you for having this talk with me, and thank you, Terry Pratchett. Again, I'm doing this on his birthday. Releasing this on his birthday. Discworld became very special to me. It trumped all the other books that I read so much, and it's just so close to my heart, and that's why, like, in this episode, I want to talk about it. Again, Terry Pratchett, thank you for writing such good work and like giving us such memorable quotes and memorable characters. And Diz, where can the people find you?
Oh, you can find me on the YouTube. Look for Stephen Diz 3000. I think that's my handle. I'm also on TikTok, I think, with the same handle. Facebook, just look for Stephen Disbro. Cap will have all those links down in there for me, please. I've got a new religion that I'm starting. It's called Dislam. Check that out on YouTube. There's a little 5-minute introductory video. It's worth your time. It's pretty good, I think. Also, I'm doing a series on how to renovate your house. It's called This House. It's the show that knows home ownership is a huge, huge mistake. So check that out. And that's it. That's
all, folks, and thank you for joining us, and we will catch you all in the next episode. So also, don't forget to like and subscribe and check out all those links. I always forgot to mention those things because, like, click those links, people. We need those clicks. And look forward to a next episode. And thank you, Diz. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Cap. Bye-bye.
Inside every living person is a dead person waiting to get out. And then it was all over. The end.